to this week's episode of The Power Hour. Today we are going to talk about what is a nonprofit. And I brought who I like to call the nonprofit guru, Arna Fulcher. So she's going to talk a little bit about what a nonprofit is and all that good stuff. But first, I have to tell you guys why I started a nonprofit. This topic is very, very special and dear to me because it is what I love, it is what I breathe, and it is why I started The Power Legacy. So I started my nonprofit because I have been raised by my grandparents who are now deceased. My mother was on drugs my entire life up until maybe the last 10 years, and I never wanted or needed for anything. So even though I had my grandparents that took care of me and I didn't have a mother or a father figure actively present in my life, I never wanted for anything. But I did see children that did need and did want, and they either had a two-family household or a mother or a father. So I started volunteering at different places, and I really liked the whole nonprofit world, but I didn't just go into the nonprofit world. I started with the volunteer part of the nonprofit world. So Children Striving Together, which is my nonprofit organization, was born on March 18th of 2013. It will be 8 years next March, this March, of 2021. And I'm just excited because I've learned a lot of things by trial by fire. So thought I knew what I was doing, didn't really know, and I learned every step of the way. So, Arna, what I want you to first talk about is what is a nonprofit and why is a nonprofit important for the community and for the world that we live in today?
Hi, first of all, thank you for inviting me. I'm so glad to be here, Christy. As Christy has mentioned, nonprofits are really the cornerstone of our communities. Nonprofits were created with the intent that they would be utilized to build more social service connections, similar to what our churches do or have done in the past, but to have a different kind of flair so that they could actually combine public and private partnerships, which means the public community and private industry. Nonprofits are a way for corporations, foundations, and common folk to come together around a common cause and make our communities and our causes a lot better, to grow and spread and address common issues that affect our communities to make them wonderful places to strive, live, work, and play. Okay,
so that basically lets me know that the nonprofit industry is not only a business, but it's a way for people that are in need or people that want to give back or people that have some type of purpose in life to really excel in a different way. So with that being said, I guess I'll go to the next thing because as I just said, a nonprofit we know is a corporation, but what people get confused is they think the nonprofit is theirs. So So let's talk about how a nonprofit does not belong to you, the founder. So me, Christy, Children Striving Together does not belong to me.
You are absolutely correct, Christy. So let's talk about a few things first.
Okay.
When you are a founder, that means you planted the seed. You created the idea. You sparked the concept. But in order for your nonprofit to be a public benefit corporation, the term public benefit, it has to benefit the public. Therefore, nonprofits were created without ownership. No one owns a nonprofit. A nonprofit belongs to the community or to the constituents that you serve. In order for you to maintain your nonprofit status, meaning you're tax exempt, you have to show public support. Public support means someone else is putting the money behind the concept, the plan, the vision, the idea, so that it continues to grow and benefit the public. So when you start a nonprofit, you do that. You start it, but you are not the owner of it. There is no ownership. There is no stock. There is no, I'm the president of the board and I run everything and I do. No. A nonprofit is a public benefit corporation, and that's why it is established, to benefit the public. One other point I'd like to make here, which will really clarify, if a nonprofit were to go out of business or cease to exist, all assets, and I mean all assets, all money in the bank, any equipment, any furniture, anything that a nonprofit owns, inheres to another nonprofit. It cannot go back to directly benefit any one individual or organization that is not a 501c3.
First of all, Let me tell you, I'm so glad you said that because I was going to talk about it, but you said it. So I always tell people, just so you know, if you have $1 million in there and you decide that you no longer want that nonprofit, it ain't yours, boo. It is not yours. You cannot go put that in your account, go buy this car, this Tesla, this nice house. It does not belong to you. So I am glad you said that. But another thing that you said was tax exempt status. So I want to talk just real quick about that.
Okay.
So when it comes to the tax exempt status, of course, we know that is the documentation that allows you to be tax exempt so that you can receive funding, you can get grants, and you don't pay taxes. But what people are getting confused is Mr. 1023, which is a form you guys will learn about, which is the tax exempt status to allow you to receive donations, is the only document that you need. But we need the state as well to be a nonprofit. So I would like for you to tell everyone watching why the federal status is, of course, very, very important so that we can receive that money, but also the state is even more important. So just talk a little bit about that.
Yes, there are actually 2 steps to create a nonprofit in any state. In California, since that's where we are and that's who we're trying to reach out to, you have to create a nonprofit public benefit corporation with the state of California. The main reason why you're creating these corporations is so that as donors give you money, those dollars can be donations that they can write off on their taxes for a tax write-off.
Right.
If you are not tax exempt, then your donation is not tax deductible.
Right.
But most people think, oh, I set up my California corporation, I got my letter that says I'm exempt from California nonprofit status. Well, have you filed your federal paperwork?
Right.
Just because you're exempt at the state level, you cannot get federal exemption until you fill out the Form 1023 that Christy is talking about.
Right.
A Form 1023 is not required to be called a nonprofit, but it is required if you want national exemption so that anyone from anywhere can give you a donation and receive a tax write-off.
All right, so that means that you need both. So you need your state and you need your federal. So again, we talked about a few things here, so we're just going to do a brief little recap about it. So we talked about the importance of a nonprofit, how charities, public, we all benefit in a positive way, which is why we bring nonprofits to the community, because we see a need and we want that need to change into something that eventually we hope that we don't ever have to have it again. But with the way we live, the world we live in, there's always going to be a need for something. So nonprofits are important for the community. Also, we talked about the 1023 form, which is that tax deductible or tax determination letter that they get from the IRS, but it also goes hand in hand with the state exemption. So it doesn't matter what state you're in, not just California, any state that you live in, you need the federal and you need the state. And then we also talked about the reason why nonprofits kind of gather, and then the nonprofit does not belong to you.
Right.
So
that's correct.
All of these things are very, very important, you guys, for you guys to know when it comes to the nonprofit world. There's so many other tax rules and regulations and filings that go into creating a nonprofit. It is not yours. You cannot run it by yourself because you need a board. But we're going to talk about that in another episode. So again, Arna, I want to thank you for being on this episode of the Power Hour. If you have any last minute words that you would like to tell the audience, please do so. As it relates to nonprofits, maybe a myth you want to dispel or just something that they need to know.
Just know, all I can tell you from all the years I've worked with nonprofits do not mean no money.
Thank you.
That's what you need to realize. Just because you're a nonprofit doesn't mean there's no money involved. There are mega $1-million nonprofit organizations. Nonprofit just means you're at the benefit of the community.
Hey, that's a good way to end that. All right, so again, thank you guys for watching this episode of the Power Hour, and I will see you all next week. Bye.